these words from the 19th chapter of the Gospel of Luke, verses 1 through 10. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through, and a man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and very wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but he was short, and he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree and to see Jesus, since Jesus was coming that way. And when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up to him and he said, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So Zacchaeus came down at once, and Jesus welcomed him gladly. Or Zacchaeus welcomed Jesus gladly. And all the people saw this and began to mutter, "He's gone to be the guest of a sinner." What was he thinking? But Zacchaeus stood up and he said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody, I will pay them back 4 times the amount I cheated them out of." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost."
Hurry down, Zacchaeus. I will stay at your house today.
My house?
We want to stay in his house.
Listen. I give half of my belongings to the poor. And if I have cheated anyone, I will pay him back 4 times as much.
Salvation has come to this house today, for this man also is a descendant of Abraham. The Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost.
What a powerful story. One of the most hated men in a community is so excited to see Jesus, but yet knowing that he is despised, he is hated, he is looked down upon because he is a horrible person. He was a tax collector. He worked for the Roman government, and he was a Jewish man. He was a religious man. And what was so horrible and disgusting was that he took the money from very poor people to pay their taxes to the Roman government, but then he would take more than they owed and line his pockets with it. He would skim money off of, he would take more than he was supposed to, and that's how he got his wealth. And then something happened to him. I mean, something was transformed. Something happened to Zacchaeus, and he decided he wanted to set his wealth down so that it could be shared, not so that it could be hoarded by him. He had made a living taking money, much more than he could ever spend in a lifetime, and was a sinner, was broken. His way of looking at the world and himself and God were messed up. He was very selfish. It was all about him. But something in him that was unraveled. Well, first of all, was becoming unraveled. Whatever that selfishness and that greediness was that was in him was unraveling. And God was taking that and weaving back together something new, something different, something transformed. I'm wondering if he had seen Jesus in other towns and in other places and heard him speak and saw him heal and saw him transform people physically or spiritually. Maybe saw him drive out demons. And something hooked him, and he wanted to know more. He wanted whatever that was, that power, that presence, that energy that Jesus had. It was somehow life-giving for him, and he wanted to be a part of that. He wanted to be different. And so Jesus is coming through his town, through Jericho, a very, very populous town. And it was so important, as we saw in the little video clip, Zacchaeus needed to see Jesus, so he climbed a tree. Perhaps, I think he'd been thinking about this for a long while, and then something happened. He was different, and Jesus came along and noticed Zacchaeus. He saw him up in the tree. He didn't ignore him. He didn't walk past him. He acknowledged him. He saw into him. Don't we all want to be seen and acknowledged and known that way? And then he offered him radical grace and forgiveness by saying to this despicable, disgustingly rich, greedy, selfish man, I'm going to come eat at your house today. Oh my God, can you imagine how upset all of these people were that thought, why is he hanging around with this despicable, rich tax collector who pushes us down and steps on us in his greediness and takes what doesn't belong to him? And you're going to associate with him, Jesus? Why don't you have supper with us instead of with him? And isn't that the way Jesus does things? He does things differently. He does things in a way that we never expect. Somewhere along the line, Zacchaeus saw in Jesus a way that he wanted to be. And then Jesus saw Zacchaeus, and there was transformation. And Jesus said, salvation has come to this man. Salvation from what? From a downward spiral of greed. Saved from the spiritual vacuum that was so immense that Zacchaeus could not even relate to the people that were part of his own religious culture. All it was for him was about money, about being greedy. His purpose had become getting richer and richer and richer off the backs of the poor. And that changed. He was transformed. Nobody could really believe it. They even laughed when he said, I'm going to give everything I have, or at least half of it, away and repay people what I owe them. He let go of that which had been keeping him from becoming all that God wanted him to be. He let it go. A huge, huge transformation to his spiritual life, to the way he saw himself and God and others. Zacchaeus climbed that tree because he decided he didn't want life to pass him by anymore. He didn't want to be self-absorbed and isolated and looked down on and despised. His heart was changed, and he wanted to see this Jesus person who had been instrumental in helping him see there is another way to be. I don't want to be stuck in this way of life anymore. I want to be different. I want to be whole. I want to be healed. That was pretty brave when you consider his lifestyle, that he was courageous enough to climb that tree. As a short person, I know that's not easy. You know, you don't always get down. I got stuck one time in a tree. I did climb. He took a huge risk to change his life, to let go of what had been his whole focus, which was getting more and more and more. He let that go, and he took the risk to change. Change is hard. We all know that. Even good change. Getting married is a hard change. It's a great change. It's a good change. But it's change, and change is hard. And Zacchaeus was willing to take the risk and make that change. Are we willing to take the risk and to get out of our comfort zone and to climb a tree that maybe looks way too high or, way too difficult? Are we willing to think about that? I wonder what Zacchaeus and Jesus shared in their conversation that night when Zacchaeus had Jesus come over to his house. Wonder what our conversation would be if Jesus came to our house for dinner. What do you think you would talk about? What do you think would be in the conversation? What do you think you would experience and feel? Extraordinary love, extraordinary grace, extraordinary forgiveness. That sounds... I wish I could have dinner with Jesus. And I get to talk to Jesus every day. And I see Jesus in your lives. I see Jesus in what you all do as a faith community. And I see Jesus when I'm praying and talking to him. And I see Jesus when I try to live the way that I think Jesus calls us to live. Jesus says in Matthew 11, verse 30, and this is the Message version, "Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn my rhythms of grace. Keep company with me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly." Dear friends, no matter how tall or short you are, no matter how rich or poor, whether you're up a tree or out on a limb, hurry down. Don't stay stuck. Come down, because Jesus wants to stay at your house today. Amen.